All right, everybody, welcome back. Today, we're going deep on the USERRELATIONSHIP function.
Use relationship.
In DAX, in Excel.
Yeah.
And this is one that, you're not going to use every day.
Right.
But when you need it,
it's a lifesaver.
It's a lifesaver.
When you have complex data models and you need to analyze data in ways that go beyond your standard relationships, this is the tool you reach for.
Yeah. So for our deep dive today, we've got some excerpts from the Microsoft documentation.
Always a good place to start.
Yeah. And just some other stuff that I've collected here about USERRELATIONSHIP.
Cool.
And it's really all about, like I said, controlling how your data connects and making
relationships,
making your calculations smarter.
Yeah.
So let's jump in.
Okay.
First of all, what does USERRELATIONSHIP even do? What does it actually do?
Okay, so USERRELATIONSHIP is like a temporary override for your data model.
Okay.
So, you've got your data tables, your relationship set up, all nice and neat.
Yeah.
But then you have this specific calculation where you need to analyze things a little differently. And USERRELATIONSHIP lets you do that without actually changing your underlying data model.
So is it kind of like, just for this one calculation, use this connection between these two tables, even if
that's not how they're normally connected.
Okay, that's starting to make sense.
Like, imagine you're working with sales data, right?
Okay.
You have your sales table, your customer table, your product table, and maybe you have a relationship between sales and customers based on customer ID.
Right.
But now you want to analyze sales based on, say, the customer city, which is in a different table.
Okay.
That's where USERRELATIONSHIP comes in.
Okay.
You can use it to temporarily establish a connection between sales and the city table.
Got it.
Just for that specific calculation.
Without messing up all the other relationships that I've already got set up.
Exactly. You're just telling DAX, hey, just for this calculation, use this relationship instead.
That's cool. I can see how that would be really powerful.
Right.
But just to make sure I understand completely, you keep saying relationship. Yeah. So you've got these different tables, like you're saying.
Yeah.
A sales table, a customer table, a product table.
Right.
What exactly is a relationship in this context?
Okay, good question.
Yeah.
So relationships are how Excel knows how to connect the dots between your tables.
Okay.
Like, it's how it knows which customer goes with which sale. You usually set this up based on a common column, like a customer ID.
Okay.
That's shared between the tables.
So it's like the glue that holds everything together.
Yeah, exactly. And USEL's relationship lets you play with that glue a little bit.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Like, use a different kind of glue just for one specific calculation.
I like that analogy. So we understand what it does. We understand relationships.
Yep.
What about the syntax? Like, how do you actually write this function?
Okay, so the syntax is pretty straightforward. It's USERRELATIONSHIP, and then in parentheses, you put the two columns you want to connect.
Okay, so like column A from table 1.
Exactly.
And then column B from table 2.
Yep. And that creates your temporary relationship.
Easy peasy. But I'm guessing there's more to it than just that.
Well, yeah, there are some things to keep in mind.
Okay, like what?
Like limitations, for example.
Okay.
You can't use USERRELATIONSHIP just anywhere in your formulas.
Okay.
It only works within certain other DAX functions, like calculate or total MTD.
Okay, so you can't just like throw it into any old sum function.
Right. It needs to be within a specific context.
Okay, that makes sense.
And another limitation is that you can't use it where row-level security is defined on a table.
Ah, what is row-level security?
So row-level security is a way to control who sees what data in your model.
Okay.
Like, maybe you don't want interns seeing everyone's salaries.
Yeah, makes sense.
So you can set up rules that restrict access to certain rows based on the user's credentials.
Okay, I get it.
But that means you can't use USERRELATIONSHIP on those tables.
Okay, so that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
So we've got the what, the how, the why, and the limitations. But I also saw this thing about nesting.
Oh, yeah.
And I know nesting in Excel.
Right,
like,
yeah.
With IF statements and stuff.
Yep, yeah.
But what does nesting mean with USERRELATIONSHIP?
So nesting with USERRELATIONSHIP is basically using the function within another function. Like, imagine you have a calculate function. And inside that calculate function, you use USERRELATIONSHIP to define a temporary relationship.
Okay, I see.
That's nesting.
And this lets you do like even more complex calculations.
Exactly. Gives you more control and flexibility.
So can you give me like a real world example of how you might use this nesting thing?
Yeah, sure. Let's go back to our sales data example.
Okay.
You want to compare this year's sales to last year's, but you also want to factor in customer loyalty levels.
Okay.
Which changed over time. You could use nesting to connect to your loyalty program table and compare sales based on both the year and the loyalty level.
So like, show me sales for loyal customers in 2023.
Exactly.
Compared to preferred customers in 2022.
You got it. And you can do this for multiple levels too.
Multiple levels. Like how many levels can you go?
Well, the maximum nesting level for use relationship is 10. 10. But that's getting pretty intense.
10 levels deep. That's like a skyscraper in Excel.
Exactly. You only need that for extremely complex scenarios.
I can't even imagine needing to go that deep.
It's rare, but it shows you the power of use relationship.
Yeah, it's impressive.
And one last thing to mention about nesting.
Okay.
It can affect how other nested calculate functions work.
So it's important to really understand how everything interacts.
Definitely. If you're going to use nesting, you need to plan it out carefully.
Okay, this is all starting to make sense, but it sounds like it can get pretty complicated pretty quickly.
It can, but don't let that scare you. You don't need to master nesting right away to start using use relationship effectively.
Okay, that's good to know.
But it's definitely something to explore as you get more comfortable with DAX.
So we've covered a lot about use relationship.
Yeah, we have.
The what, the why, the how, the limitations, the nesting.
We even talked about skyscrapers.
We did. Anything else we need to touch on before we wrap up?
Oh, there's one more thing that's important to understand.
Okay, what's that?
One-to-one relationships.
One-to-one relationships. What about them?
So with use relationship, filters only flow in one direction.
One direction.
Yeah, like a one-way street.
Okay.
So if you have a one-to-one relationship and you use relationship, it will only activate that relationship in one direction.
So the filter goes from table A to table B, but not the other way around.
Exactly.
Okay, I see how that could be a problem.
Yeah, it can trip people up.
So what if I need to filter in both directions?
If you need two-way filtering with a one-to-one relationship, you have to use two use relationship functions.
Okay.
One for each direction.
So you're basically creating two temporary relationships.
Exactly. One for A to B and one for B to A.
Clever. But it sounds like that could get a little messy.
It can, but it's the only way to achieve bidirectional filtering in this situation.
All right, so we've really covered it all now, haven't we?
I think so.
Use a relationship.
One of the most powerful functions in DAX.
Extremely powerful, yeah.
But also a little tricky.
It can be, yeah.
But hopefully we've demystified it a bit today.
Yeah, so to sum it all up, use a relationship lets us temporarily change how tables are connected.
Yep.
It gives us incredible control over our data analysis.
It does. You can do some really cool things with it.
And by mastering nesting, we can really unlock its true potential.
Definitely. That's where the real magic happens.
So to our listeners out there, I leave you with a thought. How could you use relationship to solve a data challenge you're facing?
Good question.
Think about the connections in your data and how you might want to manipulate them to get those aha insights.
The possibilities are endless.
Until next time.
See ya.
Bye.